Well, hello, hello, hello. Much love to you all. May God bless you all. Hit that like button. We're going to go over another Hebrew word of the day. We're going to go over a Hebrew word that can stand for something that is banned, something that is destroyed, or something that is devoted to God. And it appears some 100 times throughout Scripture. And honestly, this portion of Scripture sometimes can make people that are questioning the Bible really question it even more. And that's why we're hurting as a society that my people lack knowledge and wisdom, that English is the youngest language upon the face of the earth. When studying the Old Testament, we should look at Hebrew and ancient Hebrew and Paleo Hebrew, and we should look at Greek as well between the Old and New Testament, because English is the newest language. And throughout this study, been shown many times that the English word literally has no concept for what the actual meaning of it means. Not all words. Some words render really well. But as we're going to see here in Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 2, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Okay, so we're going to get to utterly destroyed, and that's where we see our word.
Strong's H 2763. Haram. Haram.
Okay, so we see this, and we see it as to ban, devote, destroy utterly, completely destroy, dedicate for destruction, exterminate, to prohibit for common use or ban, which would make sense a lot of times when it said to do away with the pagan gods and all the idols they have and throw them in a fire and burn it. Why? To prohibit it for common use and to ban it, because it might make their hearts turn away from the Lord thy God. To consecrate, devote, dedicated for destruction, to exterminate, completely destroy, to put under the ban, be devoted to destruction, to be devoted, be fortified, to be completely destroyed, to split, slit, mutilate a body, a part of the body, which could get into, of course, certain sacrifices that were done, to mutilate and to divide. So it's really key context to look at these things. So verses like these can be disturbing to people as they look through the Bible and read. Now, I want to not make this so disturbing. I want us to realize that certain Bible translations have rendered this Hebrew word to either stand for destruction or annihilation. Other times, they have used it to talk about devoting something to the Lord. So I want you to notice this is a root word here for what we're going to see here in Numbers 18, verse 14, which they both mean the same thing. Everything devoted in Israel shall be thine. So we get to devoted, and it deprives from this word, H 2763, and this is H 2764.
Strong's H 2764. Cherem. Cherem. And second entry, Cherem. Cherem.
So you see it as a thing devoted, thing dedicated, banned, devotion, a net, and you see have been utterly destroyed or appointed to utter destruction. A lot of similarities here, comes from the same word. So it's really key context to look at these things. Other times the translations have told us to put something under a ban. So of course, we go to Deuteronomy 13, verse 17, and there shall cleave not of the cursed things to thine hand, that the Lord may turn from the fierceness of his anger, and show thee mercy, and have compassion upon thee, and multiply thee, as he has sworn unto thy fathers. So, of course, we're seeing that the Lord does not want anyone to cleave to these banned items, these cursed things, which are banned items. They are to be banned. So, of course, when they see cursed things, some people would be like, well, I don't really see where it could mean ban. Well, that's where like the NASB version actually puts it as things that are put under a ban. And that's where the King James Version puts it as cursed things. They really are one and the same thing of meaning once you have. That's why I always try to say, look at the blueletterbible.com or buy you a, which I've done videos to show them in the How to Study playlist. You got the Hebrew and Greek interlinear Bible along with the Strong's Concordance. You can see things like this, and you can end up seeing the true definition of some words here and not be so confused when we read certain texts that can be extremely confusing if we were to just look at a carnal mindset with these things. So the word for utterly destroyed, devoted things, it is typically used in the Bible, and it pertains to what happens to a defeated people after a war has ended. And throughout history, victors have claimed such spoils, often making the conquered people slaves while possessing their valuables. But however, the Bible has a very different note for what happens with Israel. They don't win this military battle by their own strength. The text makes it clear that left to their own devices, the Israelites would be defeated and they would be dead or homeless. I mean, let's look in, of course, the book of Joshua. Not just the book of Joshua, but also the book of Judges. Gideon and the 300. I mean, God takes 300 and sends like 90% of them home to prove that the victory would not be on their own terms and their own hands so that they wouldn't give credit to themselves. Credit was given to God. It is only by the intervention of God that Israel walks away with the military victory. So ultimately, the victor is God, not the Israelites. And the spoils of war belong to God, not the Israelites. The Israelites cannot take for themselves. A fear is that if the Israelites took the spoils for themselves, the conquered people would steal Israel's heart away from the very God who bought the victory to them. And that's where we get here at Deuteronomy 20, verse 17. And thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. So once again, thou shalt utterly destroy them is the same word that we have been looking at here. But let's jump to verse 18. That they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods. So should ye sin against the Lord your God. So this is why a lot of this had to ultimately happen. You look at things like Elijah, the temples of Baal had to be destroyed because the people's hearts were playing harlot with God, and they kept coming back and back and back to the abominations that was against the Lord thy God. So let's go to Deuteronomy 13, verse 15. It says, thou shalt surely smite the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, destroying it utterly, and all that is therein, the cattle thereof, with the edge of the sword. Well, once again, we see that it is the same destroying, the same Hebrew word we've been talking about. So this might be disturbing to some people that the texts say things like this, but we see it says like all things that have breath should die, or the personal property should go up in smoke. But we need to realize what the Bible is talking about. The spoils of war were set aside for God who brought the victory. It is only God that brings the victory over anything we have. See, the Bible teaches us of pure holiness and to veer away from pagan gods and things that will make our hearts go a-lusting after things. So when we see this word come up for straight up destruction or what might seem like senseless killing, which you see many people that mock the Bible bring it up, well, this and that was happening, this and that was happening. But the problem is people don't study. And once we study, we see what the word is actually reflecting about ancient practices that, of course, are no longer around today, because once Christ returns, the wicked are going to get their part in the lake of fire anyways. So, to understand what's going on in the Bible, sometimes we need to just pray, we need to reflect, and we need to dig a little deeper than English concepts can give us. I know not all of us are theologians, or not all of us are, sought out teachers, but nevertheless, the resources are in front of us to check the scriptures. Ultimately, pray before we read, because prayer is the ultimate key to talking to God. Jeremiah 33:3 says, "Call unto me." But really what the Bible envisions, which later on throughout the Hebrew words we'll talk about this word, is the Bible envisions shalom. And shalom is perfect peace. And the Bible is talking about everything when it comes down to hard things like utter destruction. What were Canaanites and Hittites and nations like this doing? There was pure chaos amongst these people. The Lord wants nothing but pure peace, which pure peace was here in the Garden of Eden, but sin separated us from pure peace. May God bless you all, and much love.